Your attention, please. How many were at the first seminar? Great. You have a thirst for knowledge. Today, this afternoon, I was looking for a seminar once again to help your business. And one thing that really strikes me is that many times I see one tavern owner who just bought their bar, paid $250,000 for it, and the bar across the street is a guy who's been there for 30 years. His mortgage is paid for. They both charge the same. And I'm saying, how can you make a living here? Or else this guy's making way too much money, or whatever the case may be. But anyway, pricing is something I think that I used to work for Perkins Restaurants for a small amount of time. But one thing I did learn from Perkins is things about food costs, labor costs, how to establish these things, the percentages, and what things should be charged. We had a seminar like this years ago, probably how long ago I want to say. And the pricing thing to me is very important. And I think it's something that we overlook. Because without a doubt, I'm willing to bet 99% of you base your price on what the guy across the street charges. Despite labor costs, despite overhead, despite anything. And this is just not a good way to do business, in my opinion. Of course, that's my opinion. So anyway, I said, who can I get to give a seminar on this? Ideally, I want an accountant. I want an accountant that has experience. And if I could really find an accountant that is an owner, that would really be great. Then if I could find an accountant that is experienced, that is an owner, that is a member of the Tavern League, that would be really great. Well, I hit the home run the first three. I found an accountant, one that is experienced, and one that was an owner. And then after one email, I had one that was also a member. So, with that, I want to introduce Kim Roof. Kim, if you recognize the name, writes articles in all of our magazines, on-premise magazines, on accounting, tax issues, things like that. She gave a seminar a few years ago in Conwalk on tipping and tipping procedures. Did a wonderful job. And I contacted Kim asking if she would be comfortable doing a seminar on how to price product and how we should establish things like that. And she said she'd be more than happy to do that. So with that, I want to introduce Kim Roof from Wegner and Associates. And she will, unlike the last seminar, she will take questions during the seminar. So if the question pops up, just press the point, raise your hand immediately, and she will address that. And so let's give a warm welcome to Kim. Thanks.
Thanks. And as Pete said, oh, was that too loud?
Nope.
I'd like a laid-back seminar, and I love the fact that you guys bring your beer into the seminar room. I was really surprised a couple of years ago when I gave the talk on tip reporting. It was the first time that it ever happened to me. I wanted to know where mine was. So what we're going to try to do today, I know it's kind of late in the day and you probably have a lot going on, but I'm going to try to talk to you a little bit about pricing, hopefully answer some questions that you might have, maybe make things a little easier. And as I said, if you have a question, please feel free, raise your hand, and you can answer it right at the time so we don't get to the end of the seminar and we can't remember exactly what we were talking about. And interesting that Pete would start his introduction the way that he did, because I was going to talk to you about how you set your prices already, and I'm really curious who uses a dartboard. Just put the number up there and throw the dart wherever it lands. That's it? No? Yeah, you? All right. Guessing what customers would be willing to pay. Did you ever ask yourself, well, if I was a customer and I came into my bar, what would I be willing to pay for this? And did you ever base your prices on that? Looking at the competition, looking at the guy across the street, you don't know what his overhead is and how his business is different than yours, but a lot of people, in all honesty, myself included, and just to fill you in on the bar thing, about a year and a half ago, I bought into part ownership of a bar in Cross Plains. It's called Shelton's Bar and Grill. And so all these things I'm talking to you about I should be doing, but not all of them do I do on a regular basis, just like all of you. We get busy and priorities take us away from that. But looking at the competition, I think, is probably the single most common way that people set their prices if they're not doing it the strategic and scientific way. And hopefully today I'm going to give you some ways to strategically and scientifically think about how to set your prices so that you're sure that you're getting your margins that you want to get. And then, again, maybe some combination of these. Maybe on some items we kind of know about what the cost is, we know what the competition is charging, we're confident enough in our past abilities to set our prices, and so we just, put a price on it. And that sometimes will work just fine. All right, in 2010, April 2010, Web Visible did a survey of 1,000 Americans, and they asked them what the top 3 reasons were that they patronized local, independent businesses as opposed to larger chains. Does anybody want to take a guess at what some of those were?
Support your local business.
Service.
Service. Okay, anybody else? Price, you think? Well, support for the community was number 1, followed by a convenient location and more personalized service. Only 34% of people with incomes under $25,000 and 20% of people with incomes over $75,000 rank pricing their number 1. So what does that mean to us? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's a quote. When conventional wisdom would say that price should matter most in a recovering economy, it turns out Americans still make purchase decisions based on service, convenience, and supporting their communities. And that was Kirsten Managers with Web Visible. So what does that mean to us? It means we can be smart about setting our prices without risking losing customers. And it means we can choose how profitable our restaurant will be, at least in terms of our gross margin. And the gross margin is the cost, what you're selling your item for, minus all the direct costs that go into that item. And we can pretty well target that we know what that percent is going to be and hit that percent. And then hopefully we can manage all the other things that go into the bottom line. So how do we go about doing this? Won't it take too much time? And how often does it have to be redone? These are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And again, ask questions as we go along. We'll start with defining a few terms that are going to be important to us today. Shrinkage, all know what shrinkage is. It's what's lost when you cook something or when you get something ready to go into a product. So for example, hamburger. If we have 10 pounds of hamburger and we start cooking it and we're done cooking it, we're going to put it in our taco meat, we may only have 7 pounds of hamburger left. And that 30% or that 3 pounds is considered shrinkage for costing purposes. Trim would be the amount of fat removed if you're working with a piece of a steak or pork roast or something like that, and you're actually trimming off the fat. That's what we call trim. And again, we come up with a percentage that we expect to see of trim, what percentage we expect in trim. The unit cost is just that purchase price divided by the number of units we bought. And our food cost percent, that's what percentage our food is of the price that we're selling it for. And then static food. Static food is food items that are bought that don't change when we put them into a recipe. And a good example is flour or sugar. And we usually buy that by weight, but then we usually put it into our recipes by volume. So we'll buy it by the pound and put it in by the cup or the tablespoon or the teaspoon. Yes?
Question, can we substitute, if we're talking terms for food, can we, in your diagram here, can we put in liquor, beer, and it's the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and yes, thank you. Hopefully there's not a lot of trim or shrinkage in the liquor or beer.
Well, actually, we always define shrink as a difference between what you should get for it and what you actually get for it. So if you drop a bottle of beer, you get nothing for that, and you should have gotten $2.75 for that, so a shrink on that unit would be $2.75.
Okay, so I would call that waste, maybe, but terminology. So, how do we start? First things first, I would say, if you haven't done it before, start with the most common items that you sell. And really take a good hard look at, I sell my most popular item is our fish fry, a Friday night fish fry. Well, do you have a really good handle on what exactly that Friday night fish fry costs you? So you can be sure you're getting your profit margins versus just hoping to get your profit margins. And then, after you after you start with your most common items, the other thing that I'll show you how to do is recurring items. For example, we put all of our sandwiches in a plastic basket with a piece of wax paper and chips and a pickle.